Good Sampo and a very warm welcome to the English segment of the Current Affairs program, and today we'll be talking about the International Finance Corporation. And to talk about this, we are joined by the country manager of Bhutan, Bangladesh and Nepal, Ms. Wendy Warner, and then the country coordinator of IFC, Bandari. Welcome to the show. Now to start with, first with the manager, what is IFC and its rules?
So IFC is the private sector part of the World Bank Group. So we are the largest international financial institution that's devoted solely to the private sector. We only do investments and advisory to the private sector and focused on private sector development in developing countries. So Bhutan and other developing countries are really our main market. And we are aiming to help the development of Bhutan. So we're both here to find profit-making opportunities for private companies and to help invest with them, as well as to make a very positive impact for society. So that means through the jobs that are created, for instance, through the environmental improvements and more competitive products to help for export markets or import substitution, for example. So that's what IFC is. And also IFC is actually owned by the countries. So Bhutan is one of our shareholders, just like every other country. So we really are actually the instrument of the nation to make that sort of development investments.
Okay. When it comes to Bhutan, when did Bhutan join IFC, and what are the advantages that Bhutan reaped out of IFC so far?
Thank you. Bhutan joined the country in 2003, towards the end of the year. And since then, IFC in Bhutan has invested in a number of areas and partnered with the private sector as well as with the government on a number of issues that help promote the private sector's contribution to development, and in a variety of sectors. We started our engagement in the tourism sector, promoting high-value, low-impact tourism. Today, our partners in the tourism sector contribute to taxes to the government coffers. There are high-end, high-quality Bhutanese who have been employed and trained by our clients that are in fact working abroad, and many of them are also trained abroad and brought into Bhutan. So that way we have built in capacity in the sector. They are sourcing their vegetables and other inputs from local farmers. So that too, there is a sharing of benefits because of this, our engagement and support to the sector. That was the very first FDI. In fact, that was a time when Bhutan was not known well outside, and when we made that investment, Bhutan, FDI and investments in Bhutan became more visible. Similarly, we did one of the largest FDIs in Bhutan with Bhutan National Bank. That was in the financial sector, where we are helping now the bank to extend loans to small and medium enterprises, to the cottage and small industries. We're helping them develop environmental and social guidelines. We had a seasoned banker on the board of the company. We have also helped them take on insurance products that many other corporates in Bhutan haven't done. So that way we're trying to bring in some of the best practices in the financial sector. We're also supporting the Credit Information Bureau, for example, to provide information on the credit history of potential borrowers, so that more borrowers, more SMEs and small cottage industries and small entrepreneurs can use their credit rating so that they can get either more or cheaper loans from financial institutions. That's the way we engage in the sector. Similarly, in agribusiness also, we have one of the largest investments in the private agriculture with mountain hazelnuts. That employs a lot of our youth, especially from the eastern parts of the country, and they are promoting best practices in agriculture development, engaging the community with over 15,000 farmer households. So that way we have so far, over the last 10 years or so, done quite a bit in different sectors. We've also advised the municipality of Thimphu to develop a parking facility using a PPP model, also one of the first of its kind in Thimphu. So we are going to see that being inaugurated in a couple of months. So that way, in the infrastructure, financial sector, agriculture and tourism space, we've been doing quite a bit. Plus, of course, it's coupled with advisory services to the government on licensing policies, on the FDI, on PPPs. So that way we're also supporting the government development its policies in Bhutan.
Okay, when it comes to the 12 5-year plan now, what are the areas of cooperation you all are looking into this time?
Well, I think some of the areas that Om already highlighted, we will continue to be supporting clearly in how to make sure that SMEs and small enterprises, small and cottage industries here in Bhutan have access to finance through financial institutions, as well as encouraging high value services, expansion perhaps and improving the product offering in the tourism space, but also maybe looking at other products and services that where Bhutan has a competitive advantage. And this is, I think, one of the real ways to develop the diversification targets that are very clear in the government's own strategy. And finally, we would be continuing to look at manufacturing and agribusiness, maybe newer products. These are usually maybe going to be high value products, or where Bhutan has that sort of the inputs and the raw materials to successfully export manufactured products. I think one of the things that is very important to understand about IFC is that our approach to investment, I think, is very much aligned with Bhutan's approach to economic development and continued focus on gross national happiness. We have very high standards that we expect from any of our investee companies when it comes to their environmental footprint, their operations, the way they treat their workers, as well as looking at things like cultural heritage and how any investment may impact the actual footprint of the geography. So I think it's always such a great opportunity to have more investments in Bhutan, and we look forward to looking at newer investments that can also expand job creation. As well, we are continuing to support the government's look at how they can change policies, working with the Royal Monetary Authority on credit information and how to help make sure that all the financial institutions have very strong policies and procedures to ensure access to finance.
Why is IFC's main focus on private sector?
That is because our investments, it's very important to tell the government and the public that we do not take any guarantees from the government. Our financing is private in nature, so should a project fail, any of our projects fails, we will not seek recourse from the government. So that way there is a lot of private financing that happens, and so that is a very big advantage. When we're talking about the 12th Five-Year Plan, there is a big gap that has been unmet, and we can partner with the rural government to find ways in which we can bridge that gap. So from that respect, the private sector is important. Of course, when it comes to jobs, it's the private sector that creates the jobs. When it comes to paying taxes or import substitution, export promotion, all of these have to be driven by the private sector. And while in Bhutan, the public sector has, of course, fared well and has been doing well, but now we are seeing a growing rise of youth unemployment and unemployment in general. We want to diversify. We want to reduce import dependency. We want to promote agriculture. So all of these can happen only when the private sector is meaningfully engaged, and that is where we come in.
Since you look after Bangladesh and Nepal, what are some of the things that Bhutan can learn from Nepal and Bangladesh when it comes to private sector growth or financial institutions and all?
Mm-hmm. So I think that Bhutan can learn many things from other countries for sure. And one of the things that we aim to do in our engagement with both government and our clients or the private sector in general is to find good examples from other countries and or specific people, clients, companies, and bring them here or share those ideas. So IFC has offices in more than 100 countries, and our footprint of staff is everywhere. So one of the things is really about that global network. That's something that we bring to our clients. I think specifically for, if we look at this region, there is quite a few good examples of work that can be replicated, particularly looking at, let's say, the SME financing. We have quite a few examples in Bangladesh, also in India as well, where banks have decided that they need to expand their retail and SME lending, and they spend quite a bit of time and energy to build the capacity and understand how to assess credit. It's still very much private sector oriented. It's not backed by guarantees or anything. But if you gather information from more diverse sources and you do a little bit more work, you can actually very profitably lend to the small and cottage industry type of enterprises. So I think that's an excellent example. We've also, for instance, done long-term financing lines in Bangladesh to BRAC Bank, for instance, focused on women-owned SMEs, women-owned small enterprises, which is really becomes a very profitable area of diversifying products. We have also done quite a bit of investment in newer products, like innovative products. We were the very first, backer, one of the first backers on equity for a payment system in Bangladesh, which is a mobile payment system, and it's now the largest mobile money platform in the world, called bKash. So these sorts of things, I think, would really help Bhutan's development in diversification, help its entrepreneurs leapfrog, particularly on improving connectivity, improving the ability to use like e-commerce. And I think many of these things and payment systems are in discussion from the government. So that is an area I think that has a lot of potential for Bhutan. And once we have good connectivity throughout all of Bhutan, it doesn't mean that you have to be in Thimphu to be a successful export-oriented entrepreneur. You can be in Bhutan or Tashigang, and that would still be possible for you. So I think that's the sort of thing that we'd like to see. And I wanted to comment too on why we focus on the private sector. Of course, we're part of the World Bank Group, so we are kind of a sister organization with the World Bank, and the World Bank focuses on government financing. But broadly speaking, concessional public finance is increasingly going to be more expensive for Bhutan, as in the next few years, Bhutan will graduate from its current status as a more low-income country, and so Bhutan needs to maximize all of its public revenues for things that should be and need to be done by the public sector. For instance, focusing on primary education, maybe basic health care, some of the infrastructure in more remote areas, and utilize the private sector capital, but also innovation and technology and ability to efficiently continue operations well, to get the benefits for the Bhutanese people.
Sir Umbandari, now, many people say that in Bhutan, the reason why there is a slow growth in private sector is because of the financial institutions. So what do you say that? Is it because of the high interest rate that there is not much of private sector growth in Bhutan, and what should be done?
I think there are a couple of issues. Primarily, the financial institutions look for fixed, tangible assets as collateral, and that usually small, medium enterprises or young entrepreneurs would not have. And the amount of equity that they can put up front is also going to be very limited. So both on the debt side as well as on the equity side, there are challenges. And I think they're right in saying that, because of this reason, they're right in saying that they don't have access to finance. So what we're trying to do, for example, is like I said, help the Credit Information Bureau look at, let us say, a utility bill payment history of individuals. Like, are they paying their electricity bills? Are they paying their credit card bills? Are they paying, the phone bills in time and in order? If that kind of credit history is being then, or have they been paying the previous loans, on time and in order? So if that history is there, then the banks can do two things. One is they may be able to extend more for less amount of collateral because they know that the person is creditworthy, or number two, they may be able to give a lower interest rate for the same amount. So that is one area. The other thing we're also working with the central bank is we're helping the central bank develop guidelines as to how banks can use movable collateral. Their cows, for example, not only cars. I mean, we are already using the cars, but animals. They may have stock in their shop that could be used as movable collateral. There may be other movable property that could be pledged. And that is another area where the financial institutions can assess certain movable collateral and use that as backup for loans to support SMEs. Plus now we're also working to promote an environment that is conducive to the growth of cottage and small industries. Larger FDIs, for example, could also support smaller companies and individuals. So that is an area where we're talking about public-private partnerships, where there are opportunities like in waste management. We are already seeing some that are happening, and now we're talking about parking facilities. And so like this, we do want to demonstrate that there are ways in which young entrepreneurs could be engaged in the economy. So anything you'd like to add on that?
No, I think there's key things that the government needs to do to make sure it's easier for every small entrepreneur to start a business and to operate a business, to export, to trade and receive funds. So I think the focus for the government should be really on just simplifying regulations and making it very easy to do business. We already see, there's sometimes when I come to Bhutan, there's always these questions about, well, why isn't it more? And of course, we always want to improve, and there's much more that can be done. But we should also focus on some of the great examples here in Bhutan. I mean, we have an investment with Bhutan National Bank, and they've already been given loans to more than 2,000 small entrepreneurs. So they are doing these things, and we can also see great examples of a lot of young people being employed, for instance, at the IT park. This is something that the World Bank and IFC and even myself personally worked on many years ago. So it's always heartening to see new technologies and new services being done right here in Bhutan, and I think there's a lot of potential for growth and improvement in the future.
Like Sir Umbandar rightly pointed out that banks look for collaterals. Now when it comes to IFC, like when you all plan to invest on a private, for instance, you all cited Shiwaling and Aman as examples. What are the things that you all look into? What are the criteria that they should meet into for IFC to invest in them?
No, that's a great question, and we're always looking for new projects and new businesses. So first of all, of course, what we invest in does have to be a private company. It has to be a private sector entity. We very, very rarely invest in something that has a government ownership, unless it's a very small government ownership. So that's one thing. And we honestly do quite extensive due diligence on a project plan. What is the potential? What is the product? What's the market? Where are you going to operate? Where are you going to get your inputs? So that sort of kind of feasibility is really very important. And we bring in a team of experts and specialists, both on the financial side, but also on the operations side, that have worked in that particular sector. So when we look at tourism, we have tourism experts. If we would look at aluminum or cement, or we would bring in experts who have worked in those fields. So this is actually an opportunity for an entrepreneur to actually get, honestly, some free advice from really people who have done these sorts of projects everywhere. So that's the sort of process we go through. And we do require, for instance, some basics. We have to have financial statements for at least a few years. Usually we are going to invest in operating companies. So if it's completely brand new, it would be difficult. But when it's a startup or an expansion or something, maybe a new spin-off, that's the sort of thing that we would be looking at. Mostly our loans are here in foreign currency, so we have to have permission, of course, for a foreign currency loan, and so it's important to be able to manage the foreign currency obligations and maybe have some revenues, although it doesn't have to be all revenues in foreign currency. And we also make sure that the people we're working with are the type of people that we want to endorse, and so we look into pretty much everything about a company, but we are very open to proposals and we're open to new sectors, and we really want our investment to continue to align with what Bhutan is looking at. So the development impact also of every of our projects is very important. So what kind of impact will you have on the environment or on jobs? Particularly, how do you maybe reduce imports or expand exports? So these are the sort of things that we look at, and we're very excited about the potential of Bhutan.
Okay, so do you also lend out on a lower interest rate?
We basically have commercial interest rates. So as I said, we are a financial institution. We're a profit-making financial institution. So we're not a concessional finance institution. So our rates are commercially competitive vis-a-vis other rates, but we also provide much longer, usually longer tenor, longer period of time that we would be able to make a loan. than most other banks. So this is usually a benefit of working with IFC. We make the terms of the loan, meaning how long do you have as a grace period or your repayments and that sort of thing, are really fit to the project. So every project and every loan are somewhat unique. It's not that, I give you a term sheet and I give him a term sheet, it's the same term sheet. It's never the same. It's unique to your needs.
Okay, so now since IFC is also giving advices to the entrepreneurs on how to go about it, are the Bhutanese showing interest to partner with IFC? Did you come across people coming with proposals to work with IFC and all?
Directly, we do not work with individual entrepreneurs or smaller business people. We usually work, as Wendy said, with and corporates. But that being said, there is a growing interest from corporates and the private sector to use IFC's services and assistance on a number of areas. So yes, I have been receiving a number of people who are interested in, let us say, projects in the tourism sector, projects in the mining, manufacturing sector. We are seeing, an increasing interest even from many state entities to see how we can partner with them using private sector solutions. On PPPs, for example, so there are a number of areas that and a lot of interest coming from within Bhutan. We do hope to see more of this, and we would encourage more of the bigger companies to reach out and to meet us and take advantage of the value that we provide to companies.
Okay. IFC, as you rightly pointed out, is a profit-making entity. But apart from profit-making and just looking into investment, do you all also carry out any social responsibilities?
Well, as I mentioned, every single one of our projects has to do two things. We do have to have a profit, and we have to have a strong development impact. So, development is really at the heart of IFC. That's why we're here. And IFC is really at the heart of what, is sustainable development. So every project, we can't really take a project that just maybe makes money, but doesn't really seem to have much positive impact on society. Our management and our board tells us that's nothing to do with you. Let other banks do that. That's fine. So we really look at what's the impact on each of our projects. So, the kind of jobs that we're creating, the kind of, maybe it's an example. Oftentimes we're doing the first of the type of investment that we're looking at. So as Om pointed out, we've done the first FDI projects, and Amman was actually the first very high-end, hotel here that kind of helped to open up the tourism segment as a key driver of Bhutan's economy after hydropower. So that's the sort of thing we look for in every single investment. And we also continue to have engagement with all of our clients and with the general private sector about how each company and IFC can continue to be a very positive impact on society. For instance, we've recently launched here in South Asia a report called Tackling Childcare, which focuses on how companies can really make a strong business case for having childcare services to their employees in their company. And it's shown, we've seen some great case studies out of India and also we're doing in Bangladesh. Actually, it's a huge value add to attract employees and to keep them working and to make sure efficiency levels improve. So it's not just about kind of an extra sort of something on the side as a charity or something being nice. It's really part of how do you be a successful business. And that's something that we continue to promote. How do you promote childcare? How do you promote fair and transparent operations in business? And that's sort of thing that we work closely with the government as well on to make sure that all the kind of regulations for the private sector promote that type of activity.
So looking into a package, all components in one package. So with your visit this time, what are the outcomes that you are looking into and what are the agendas that you have with your visit this time?
Well, this is my first time coming to meet the new government, and it's a wonderful opportunity to start a discussion with them about how they want to look at engaging more on the private sector. And I think that the agenda of how do you diversify the economy and encourage more entrepreneurship seems to be very at the center of part of the new government's agenda. So that's really where we look forward from the International Finance Corporation, but also with the World Bank to help them on that agenda.
So since you are based here only, you know about the tourism, how tourism works in Bhutan. So IFC's focus is also on tourism. So what do you think should be done differently so that we boost tourism industry in our country? As of now, we talk so much about high value tourism, but then we don't have much of adequate infrastructures in place.
We all know the issues that are facing the sector, to the tourism sector, and I think where we would like to support the growth is in geographical diversification. I think most of the tourists are centered around Thimphu, Punakha and Paro, the Golden Triangle as they say, as well as seasonality. I think for some wrong reason, Bhutan's been promoted, only in a few months of the year surrounding the Paro and Thimphu situs. But if you look at this December, January, I mean, the weather is so nice. I mean, there's no reason why this should not be a tourist season. So I think the way we market ourselves, I think those are some of the challenges, and what IFC would like to do is support infrastructure development that will help diversify Bhutan's tourism sector away from this the three places, as well as in different seasons through different products. So we are engaged and we are in discussions with various stakeholders to see how we could support the sector.
Okay, since we are out of time, if there's anything you want to talk about that was not included in our talk.
No, I think we just would like to let everyone know that the International Finance Corporation is part of the World Bank Group, and we're really here to help the development of Bhutan and to really help the private sector to grow and prosper and make a very positive impact for all the people here. Thank you.
If there's anything you want to add, sir, that we missed out.
IFC will remain a steadfast supporter of the rural government's development plans and the country's plans. So we would like to bring in private sector solutions to address development challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. With this, we come to the end of our program, and I hope there will be more of private sector cooperations happening with IFC. Thank you so much for watching.